like I was thinking about like the things that I had said, and I just was not happy with the things that I said. So
I'll make that a priority this week to sync it up, listen to it, and then give you feedback.
And then give feedback and let Daniel know how terrible he did. Hey, and welcome to the show with no name. My name is Daniel. His name is B. Brendan, I have a question for you this evening. It seems like, and if you, I know we said we didn't want to specifically talk about things that, you know, are time specific, because we never know when we're actually going to be uploading these episodes. We've been kind of backlogging a few episodes here and there. That way we have, you know, some good content for people, especially if we ever take a break from doing this and people want to keep listening to us. We want to make sure we have something for them. The topic for tonight is in regards to consumerism. If you are listening to this and it's coming up on time when we're coming up on a time that's got a high consumerism, and that's, you know, around the Christmas time. A lot of people buy a lot of, you know, presents, and more specifically, we actually just passed Black Friday recently, which is one of the largest shopping days in the United States. They were saying on average, people will spend an additional $400 per household in the United States over the weekend. Not specifically just on that day.
Weekend.
Over the weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Wow. So between the last 3 days.
You're talking like the Black Friday weekend.
The Black Friday weekend. Like this is in addition to what you normally spend on groceries, gas, everything else. On average, every household will spend an additional $400 during this weekend in preparation for just, you know, there's just a bunch of sales going on. People are buying gifts for people and things like that. And so the topic for, you know, tonight has to do with consumerism, but there's two questions. And the first one that I wanted to ask you about, it kind of goes towards more the psyche of it, is what do you think possesses people to spend that much more money on things that they probably don't necessarily need? What would possess people to spend that much extra money? Because I'll be honest, I bought some things this weekend too, you know, type of thing. But I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on that. Why would people spend so much more money than they are normally spend in a week-to-week basis?
Okay, so I have to give a disclosure first because I'm about to cough. I have a little bit of a cold, so throughout the podcast, you'll be hearing me blow my nose, sniffle.
Absolutely unacceptable.
Well, I was going to tell him about the other bad thing that's going on right now, and that's that I'm not wearing pants. But then I figure, well, we're doing a podcast, so it doesn't really, they don't need to know that.
I haven't worn pants for any of these podcasts, so, you know.
Amazing.
Now that the cat's out of the bag, might as well, you know, let everybody know where I stand.
We're going to change the name of the show to The Show with No Pants?
The Show with No... The Show... I like that. That's a better title. That's actually a better title.
With no pants. And then you have, just for an icon, you have pants with a circle and a line through it.
That is a perfect icon. Why don't... That is a perfect... That's a perfect icon. I like that.
Show with no pants. All right, so the question is, why do people spend, like, large sums of money on...
Sure. What I mean, I get that you could argue, you know, oh well, it's the holiday season, or oh well, people are buying things as gifts, you know, for people or stuff like that. But to be honest with you, if I have no studies proving this, I have not looked up the research on this, but I want to bet, I could be wrong about this. I want to bet that out of that $400 that people are spending per household, the majority of that stuff is not in gifts for other people. They're more just, you know, collecting more clothes or shoes or household items for themselves.
So this sort of statistic, I want to kind of be kind of sure that I understand this. It's households on average are spending $400 more just in that weekend, right? So that just weekend they spend circa $400, not counting, like you were saying, like their everyday. So if it was any other weekend, they would spend X, but that weekend they spend X plus 400.
That is correct. Mm-hmm.
But we don't know specifically what they're spending it on.
No, they just said, you know, on average, it's. I mean, you would think, and I'm sure it's pretty easy to state that it's probably specifically, consumer. It's basically things that you can consume, not, you know, like it's not food. Although maybe it is food. Who knows? Maybe people are having parties and stuff after Thanksgiving. You know? Because Black Friday follows Thanksgiving, but you would think all the food and everything would be eaten the days before. So I really feel like it's strictly just materialistic things.
So I'm going to say... So I'm going to say no, it's not food, and here's why. Because I think that they've spent so much. All of it was geared for food all week, and possibly the 2 weeks before was all geared on food for that one day.
That is
true. I think the last thing that people are going to do is get online to go, hey, let's get food. Unless it's, I'm going to send so-and-so like an Omaha Steaks package or some sort of chocolate or candy basket or a fruit basket or something like that. Now that I could see, but I think they're fooded out at the moment, and we're speaking now more specifically about United States of America because that's a uniquely Thanksgiving holiday. But that's okay.
Well, it's not just a Thanksgiving. I mean, it's a North America. Canada celebrates it as well. They just celebrated about a month earlier.
They do. See, I learned something new about Canada. Like each podcast, I didn't know that they celebrated Thanksgiving. And the last weekend was the coin or the dollar. Or the
we did talk about a little bit about Canada last episode, and now I'm kind of thinking that might just become a norm. I might just have to bring one new fact about Canada for you every episode, just so you can learn a little bit more about the country north of us.
The show with no Canada.
The show with
no, I don't. I actually love
Canada.
Canada. They're like the greatest neighbors, and go Bruins. That's all I really have to say about that.
I'm sure some of our Canadian listeners, if we have any, are really appreciative of you catering to the things that they love too.
They don't love they hate the Bruins. Actually.
Oh, they hate the Bruins.
So
I don't know enough about the Bruins.
No, so the majority of the Canadian fans are probably.
They're probably Canuck fans, right?
Yeah,
Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, you would have Vancouver Canucks. How did we get on this topic from the question that you asked me? So you have Vancouver over on the West Coast, and then you'd have Toronto kind of mid-center-ish.
And who are the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, that's Toronto.
That's
Maple
Toronto
Leafs.
Maple Leafs? Okay.
You got it. And who I think they have beautiful jerseys. And then there is... So
do have
Montreal
nice
is, their sort of hockey capital. So most people would be... And they're really... Traditionally, they're best. They have Ottawa. But traditionally... Did they have Winnipeg? They used to have Winnipeg. I think they have a new Winnipeg team. I don't remember. So
this is the show with no name. We start talking about shopping and consumerism, and we end on all the different hockey teams in the country north to us.
So let's enough hockey talk. We'll get back to the.
It's anyway, not bad. That's one of the benefits of this show is that we don't have any rules. We don't have anything we have to follow. We can talk about whatever we want to talk about, and hopefully the people who are listening care about the opinions of. Well, there's not really an opinion. You're just stating teams that exist in Canada. So that's not really an opinionated. So let me get back. You're right. Let's get back to the topic for today because I want to know your opinion. I want to know what goes. So you're an American citizen, B, and so am I. What's going through your mind? Why are you going to spend $400 extra? If you can throw out the idea of just buying gifts for Christmas, because that seems like a pretty easy answer. But I argue, I don't think people are buying gifts for other people. I shouldn't say that. I'm not saying that they aren't, and it's strictly for themselves. But I've been to a few shopping malls this past weekend, and people are trying on clothes for themselves. And people are buying shoes for themselves. I mean, most of the places I went to were places where that's all you buy is clothes and shoes. But people are buying things for themselves. They're asking for sizes for themselves. Or they're buying it for their children that are right there.
Right.
And it's not like they're going to wrap it up and give it to them later. They're giving it to them now. So what is the psyche behind that? Why are people spending $400 extra per household?
And so Cyber Monday is the Monday of that weekend, right? So
Cyber Monday would follow that.
The following, okay. So I tend to agree with you. I think that not all of the purchases, but a lot of, maybe even the majority of the purchases are not for other people. They're not like, hey, I'm just now doing my Christmas shopping. I'm getting whatever. So I can think of two reasons immediately off the top of my head, but there's a few more that I just now thought of. But so the two biggest would be, it's the end of the month. And so you tend to, generally, people who are fiscally, responsible, they'll know what they have for the month. They'll sort of set a budget and they'll be like, hey, it's the end of the month. I've got this extra money left over that I can spend. Now, I noticed that in our American society today, a lot more and more people are not doing that. They treat their credit card almost like it's kind of a video game. They're just, hey, throw it on this, throw it on that. And then they end up paying for it later. But at the end of the month, if you have money left over, you're like,
I have no idea how that related to a video game. I don't throw your video game on that. Throw it on. Are you trying to shove a PS4 game into like an Xbox system and like a PC, and you're like, just throw it in there and maybe it'll work.
Just plug this USB into your credit card machine and download my money directly from the bank account. So it's like a sort of a laissez-faire sort of attitude where it's just sort of, it's not taken as seriously. Sort of like the stock market, like, oh, well, if I screw up, I just load a saved game. I'm like, you can't do that.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. So again, there's that, like, if you have money in your pocket, you're tempted to spend it, which is like one of the biggest reasons I don't carry cash.
Oh, completely understandable. But I mean, that gets into the another, conversation of, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, what percentage of the people who are going out spending this kind of money do you really believe is financially able to go and spend that kind of money at the end of the month, or that they know that they can spend that money,
on average $400. So,
that means there's families that are spending more than that, obviously.
Right, exactly.
Because I didn't spend $400 this weekend, type of thing.
$3.
You spent $3? Did you buy a croissant or something?
No.
What?
No, sorry.
You're like, and I told them to hold the cream cheese. That would have put me over $4.50. All right, I couldn't do the cream cheese.
So it was, I think it was like a little less than 20. It was an online purchase. It was like for $2.99. Yeah, give me $2.99. I'll take the $2.99 thing. So there was $3. It was $3.
$3. Okay.
I'm not going to get into any more specifics than that. It's boring. So I think you're right. I think it's just a matter of all of these sales are. So we are, and we sort of talked about it a few episodes ago when you were talking about, you asked a question about the social media sort of thing, and you brought up,
sure,
Esavin Torkenickel or whatever her name. I don't even remember.
I don't remember her name, and that sounds really bad because it was my topic that I brought up. So, as you can see, I really looked into it a whole lot more after that conversation.
So people are like just now tuning in, or like Google Esavin Tarkin. Like, who the heck are they talking about? So now they got to download one of the prior. Right,
Esavin Grand Tarkin, isn't he the guy that was on the Death Star?
Grand Moff Tarkin.
Grand
yes,
Moff Tarkin.
He was on. Yeah. So
no, it was
social
Esavin
media
Grand
didn't work for
Moff
him.
Tarkin.
Oh, was it Esavin Grand Moff?
Yeah.
Esavin was his first name.
He was really popular on Instagram. Let me tell you, man. He was really good, as you call it, the hashtag app. He was really good at the hashtag app.
Sir, do you think we should post this to the hashtag machine? Post a hashtag in our moment of social media-ness?
Hashtag Darth Vader, hashtag new Death Star.
Right. Everything was hashtag Vader.
Well, it wasn't new. I guess he was on the old one. Hashtag, exhaust point still not fixed yet. Hashtag work in progress.
He couldn't have put hashtag Death Star because that'd be like giving away their secret. Okay, so enough of the nerdiness. We need to delve away from this.
I would like to think that if anybody really cares about what we care about or knows anything about us, that they'll like some of that stuff too.
I agree. I agree. I think that's what they'll...
If they didn't, then they would not have liked that episode where we basically talked about Star Wars pretty much the entire time.
This is true.
And neither one of us are necessarily experts on the expanded universe, which anybody who gets into doing videos or podcasts or anything, they know a lot about the expanded universe. They know a lot about the extra stuff that makes them sound smarter in that world, and we are definitely not part of that group. So
speaking of Star Wars, it actually ties in with your question, because what are people buying? So it was it yesterday? So I think it was yesterday. I'm at the grocery store and I'm in the fruit section, and I happen to look up because there's this giant thing kind of looming over me, which normally isn't there. And I look up and there's this giant blown up black something or other with a lightsaber sticking out of it. And I'm like, what the heck? And I look to the next of it and they've got like a life-sized. So I am getting to the questions, right? So I'm getting the question. There's a life-sized like blow up stormtrooper who's got like his laser rifle. And he's like, I think he's supposed to be like pointing at you, the orange or apple picker. And then next to him is, I think, the new Sith guy,
as a Kylo Ren,
whatever his name is, but his head was like a mashed pillow or something. And so I was like, is that a body? And I don't understand. There's like this lightsaber. Someone did not put that display together properly, right? So all of that, and that's been feeding in for months now. And so people are, quote unquote, getting on that, right? So they're like, oh, this is being released, that's being released. I got to pick this up. And so it's also back when I was a kid growing up, you bought the Lando Calrissian Death Grip action figure and you ripped it right out of the package and you played with it and
Sure.
It fell down the gutter or whatever, and you don't even know, you don't know where it went, whatever. Nowadays, people buy the Star Wars or the Lord of the Rings or the Harry Potter or whatever it is that they're buying, or the Marvel, and then they just put it in the attic. And they're like, that's going to be worth something someday. And I'm like, no, it isn't, because everyone else is doing the exact same thing.
Exactly.
Right? So you have this commercialism of people go out and buy because they know I can get this cheap, right? So how many you get bombarded with emails going. So I had several all week long telling me for my off account, I would go in there every day, and so certain stores that I had purchased something online at least once throughout the year, and some of them that was it. I had only purchased them once. They were bombarding me with all these, hey, here's our Black Friday deals, da 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 da. And me, yeah, I'd scroll through and I'd look at them. I'd be like, okay, so is there anything on here? And of course, I ended up not buying for many of them, but I did look because I thought maybe there's a deal, and there's a part of my mind, and I think it's part of the American consumer, is maybe I'm missing something, right? If I don't go out there now, I could miss this deal. So I gotta
Sure.
go out there. Now, I don't understand the beat the guy up or camp out 400 hours ahead of time, with some of the violence and craziness that's going on.
Well, see, and that's kind of where I wanted to get to, because so basically what you're stating, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I just want to kind of summarize it. You're basically stating that, the reason that people are going to spend on average $400 more per household is strictly because of the deals, pretty much. It's strictly
pretty
because
much, I believe that.
Because the way that the companies work who want to sell you their product, they're basically telling you, if you don't get it right now, one of two things is going to happen. Either one, you're not going to be able to get it, or two, you won't find it at this price ever, type of thing. So they make you want it, kind of thing, is what you're saying. And
yeah,
see,
I think that's pretty much it. That's part of the heart of commercialism, is you're incomplete without this, or you might miss this.
Oh, sure, no, absolutely, and it's smart marketing. It's how you want to market to people. If you want to if you want to get people to buy your stuff, you have to show them why they need it, type of thing, or you have to tell them that they can't have it so that they want. Well, maybe not tell them that they can't have it, but anyway, that's kind of diving into a different aspect. But see, I want to argue also that it might be one other thing, but this is just something in preparation of asking this question. I had a little bit of an answer for myself too, and I do have a second question I want to ask. So I do want to get off of the psyche aspect of this here pretty soon. But I did want to ask, or I did want to kind of put my input on one other thing. I also believe, now this is also commercialized, don't get me wrong. So if you do not live in the United States, you may not feel this, and I don't know what this is like in Europe or in Australia or in Russia or in China. I don't know what this feels like, but I believe that the shopping and everything that takes place during this weekend also falls into a social aspect as well. That people want to belong to it because everybody else is doing it. So they make you feel like, oh, if you don't get out here, you're not going to get it, type of thing. And you see all these people going out and camping out and being crazy to get these awesome deals. And you're like, well, geez, I got to get out there and be a part of that too, type of thing. And for years, 8 years in a row, if you live in the United States, you know what Black Friday is. 8 years in a row, I went Black Friday shopping. And I never went for any crazy deals or anything like that. More than anything, I went for the experience. It was fun to watch people act crazy. It's fun to see I never went at like the crazy times, but it was always interesting to see I don't know, just thousands of people out. And I live in Texas, and it doesn't get very cold here, but there was one year it was like 20 something degrees Fahrenheit, and there's just tons of people just outside waiting to get into these stores to save 50% off on something that they could probably find online for the same price in the comfort of their home in front of the fire. And that's where I feel like there's a social aspect to it too. It's like if you don't come out here, all these other people are going to get it. So I want to be a part of that. I want to, there's some fun, I guess, that comes along.
That's a
with
good
it
point.
too.
That's true too. And they do make sort of quote unquote events about some of this. Like, hey, come on out. We're having, I was about to say bratwurst for something. Because immediately after Thanksgiving, I'm craving bratwurst. I don't know idea why. But you're right.
I know what you're talking about, like
hey,
hot chocolate
having...
or, exactly. Come out, we're going to have s'mores. We're going to cook them in the parking lot.
So-and-so will sign copies of what, I don't know, whatever.
Okay, so let me move on to the second question because I do want to get it in here because I think it's important to have it, and I think it'll maybe lighten up the conversation just a little bit. And instead of talking about the demise of our country and how far down the consumeristic toilet we've gone, if that's a word. But speaking of going back to consumerism, it's not just, so you and I both know this, and this actually doesn't just happen in the United States. This happens in other places too. It's obviously Black Friday is a big day, and people get excited and people line up and wait for hours, sometimes days. Some people maybe even weeks to get in and get a TV at 75% off. But lines for things are becoming more of a thing now for things that people want to consume, like iPhones, gaming systems, usually and coming up soon, we talked about this, Star Wars too. People will stand in line for days, weeks, just tons of time to get in. So I'm going to flip it. We're going to have a little bit of fun with this. Brendan, I want to know the top 5 things that you would wait in line for. The top 5 things that you would wait in line for that you would not, and if you don't have 5, that's fine, but just what are some things, if you don't have 5, give me just like 2 or 3, but what are some things that you would wait in line for? And go
so I was going to say, like, immediately that comes to my head, like my wife, cupcakes.
Okay, so cupcakes are good. Cupcakes are good things you could purchase. Cupcakes. You probably could purchase wives, but I don't think
you can. Certain parts of the world. Never mind. That's bad.
I was going to say we probably shouldn't go down that road. Right. So yeah, what are some of the top things that you would wait in line for more than 5 days? So
I'll answer that. But let me say, this is what I don't get is I don't understand why people why just buy it online? Why do you got to run down and I camped for 13 days. Yeah, I woke up in my slippers and I clicked this button.
It's all about being that first person to have it.
Got it.
You
really?
got to be.
You think
you
so?
got to. Well, it's interesting.
Some people are that way. I know. I used to work with a guy. He went through a new phone every month, and like I remember at one point he had 3 new phones in a week, and I was like, unbelievable, this guy.
I will say this, though. There are some times when it is beneficial to go down and be one of the first, people to do it, because you might be one of the only people, like for instance, and when I say that, I mean like
true.
Either that or you're going to have to wait a really long time. I remember years ago when the Nintendo Wii system came out, the first Wii that Nintendo released. My older brother at the time convinced all of us other children to all split our money in to buy one. And he really wanted to make sure that we got it. And so the night that it released, we went to Walmart and there were people who were waiting like to get inside, and somehow we got inside and spoke to somebody and they gave us a ticket for it, and they said, you're going to get one of the 8 Wiis that we have in this store, and that's it. We don't have any more. We only have 8. Well, here's the thing. We bought it, took it home. We didn't even have a game for it, I don't think, except for like the free game that it came with. But we didn't have anything else for it because none of the other games had been out, with enough time yet at that point. That Wii that year was on back order for like the next 5 or 6 months.
Oh my
back
gosh.
order, like so many people wanted it and couldn't have it, and we had friends that came over and visited us and wanted to play it. So I do understand it in that aspect. But things like, for instance, the iPhone. You're telling me Apple isn't smart enough to make enough iPhones
I don't understand
for you to get an iPhone, that you have to wait in line for this long, that you want to be the first person to have it? That does not make any sense to me. But at the same time, maybe there's something out there that I might wait in line for if it was something that could be bought, or if it was something that I could stand in line for. So I want to know, what are the things what are some of the top things if you would stand in line for it? And you got to, again, the preference is it's got to be at least 5 days or more. All right. So this is this is a committed situation, and you can't say nothing because I know the answer would probably be nothing, because it would be nothing for me too. So maybe just what are the top things that you wouldn't mind waiting for?
Wow, that's good. So I figure I've been waiting for this for most of my life. So it's fair enough that I could staying in line for 5 days. Again, we live in an instantaneous society where I can click. But if I had to, and I had the opportunity to, it would be tickets to one of 3 events.
Okay, so these are all events. Okay.
Yeah, they're sporting events. Okay. So the Super Bowl with my beloved Cardinals. Right?
Okay.
That would be one.
Who knows? They may play in the Super Bowl this year.
Ooh, go Cardinals. Go Cardinals.
They've been doing really well this season.
They're doing well. And so the other 2 would be tickets to the World Cup finals in one would be if the USA was playing. I'd absolutely have to be there for that. And the other one would be if Ireland was playing. I don't necessarily mean if they're playing each other, but like if the US was playing, they made it, I'd go. If Republic of Ireland made it, I would go.
Now, I don't understand enough about the World Cup, and everybody who enjoys the World Cup that's listening just tuned out after I said that. Is it possible that the United States could play Ireland? There's no rules on like how they get there, right? They're put into groups based off of how well they play throughout the year, type of thing, or throughout the last 4 years as a national team, not as like individual players or anything like that, just as a national team.
There's conferences and some minor rules, but yeah, generally speaking,
any team could play any team in the final.
Yeah, exactly. So you could so as the last World Cup we had Germany and Argentina, right? So 2 of the massive powerhouses. Mm-hmm. And if Germany had not won, it would have been Brazil and Argentina. So again, you have these 2 massive. So it's always like the final is always 2 powerhouses. So eventually, there's a few other powerhouses that are in there, but eventually only 2 can make it. So they'll have to whittle each other out. But
so as a general rule, they usually kind of mix up the different powerhouses in different
so it's kind of a
different conference groups.
So they don't clump them all into one group. They're a seed, so to speak, but they kind of think about it. If it's whittled down to 16 teams, you basically have 8 top seeds and then 8 quote unquote lower seeds. So 8 top seeds are going to be 8 really good or pretty good countries and teams. So yeah, they could play each other. So if the follow-up question to that is who would I root for, I got to be honest with you. So this was years and years ago. This is about a little less than 20 years ago. I saw Ireland, USA in Foxborough, Mass. And I believe I had an Irish flag with me, and I rooted for US won 2-1. I rooted for Ireland. I cheered my heart. I cheered so much for Ireland that the next 2 days I was hoarse. But I think
this is on TV too. This is not you at the game.
I was at the game.
You were at the game. Oh, never mind. I
was at the game. I was there with.
All right,
with a friend
I'm wrong.
And then last year the U.S. played Ireland in Ireland. And originally, a friend of mine and I were to go, but in the end, I decided not going. And I remember streaming the game online and watching it online, and immediately the U.S. scores, and I feel nothing. And then Ireland scores, and I feel nothing. And then Ireland blows out the U.S., and I feel nothing. I'm like, I can't root for either of these teams. I love them both. I really do. I love them both. At first, the first game, I really loved Ireland more, but now I'm like, I just love, it's like seeing, I don't want to say 2 ex-girlfriends because you're just kind of like, meh, but it's seeing 2 things, I guess almost like 2 children.
2 children.
Yeah, and they're fighting. You're like, I can't root for
either one of them to win.
Both.
Yeah. I love both of you. Can you both win? Is it possible for you to both win? I mean, you could tie, I guess.
Yes, so these were friendly, so they could have tied, yeah. So in the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't have mattered if they tied. It wouldn't have mattered one bit.
Well, I hope you know there wasn't a follow-up question I wasn't going to ask you because I didn't care.
So you're 5, or do you have a time? Because I literally, like you said, my answer would have been, I ain't waiting 5 days for nothing.
Oh, sure.
So
no, I understand. Casseroles.
Like your mom's casserole, a specific casserole? sausage,
like a noodle medley casserole,
upside down
I don't even know
pineapple
if
casserole.
Is there such a thing as a noodle medley casserole? 'Cause I don't feel
There's Noodles and Company, and if you went in there and said noodle medley, they'd give you something.
They would probably come up with something and give it to me.
I made
They'd
a
say
noodle
that
medley.
guy's got a noodle medley in his head already. He doesn't need any more.
There is a thing as noodle medley, but I think it's just so generic that you can't say what's in it. Like, B, what's in your
understandable.
noodle medley? Sausage,
Understandable.
broccoli.
It's interesting. The top ones
noodles.
that you picked were all sporting events, and I feel like if I were to pick something, and I've been to some of these things before, I feel like some of them would probably be like concert type things, but I don't know if they would necessarily be concerts. It'd be more like waiting in line so that I could be backstage and hang out, with like specific bands or stuff like that. I've been a huge fan of a bunch of different
wait
bands
5 days
over
in
the
line
years.
so that you could spend 24 hours.
I could spend 24 hours with like my favorite artist
like
or
Libby
something
Powell.
like that.
Hello.
I don't know
like
who
that.
that is.
She consult the book of Google. Anyway, don't do that. She's smoking hot. Anyway, keep going.
Aside,
I should have said Kate Beckinsale because she's my number one. That's
you
anyway.
want to
Keep going,
hang out
please go on.
24 hours with Kate Beckinsale?
I don't know, but if she's married, then I don't hang.
You know what? That could be a topic for a future one. We can ask who do you want to sit on a plane with for the next 6 hours.
That's a great one.
I don't know.
That
We
is a
haven't
great
talked
one.
about how we. That one could end really quickly though.
You're like Jesus, Buddha, and the president. Okay, right, I got it.
I don't think I'd pick the president. I wouldn't know what to ask the president if I sat next to him on a plane.
I would be either. Never mind.
I'd just be like, "Hey, you're president."
I'd be like, "Your Secret Service didn't do that great a job because you're sitting next to me.
Because you're sitting right next to me.
Exactly. I can.
And
touch
that's exactly how you would. That's exactly how you'd have handcuffs, and you'd be.
you. That's the whole reason I'm there. Is I'm click.
I think some of the things would be wanting to be backstage and hanging out, with other people. Aside from that, and I don't want to nerd out, but honestly, there hasn't been anything that I've been like more excited for in recent history that I can think of that I was just like so excited for it, to like come out that it, took up a bunch of my time. And that would be, like the new Star Wars movie that's coming out. I feel like I could wait 5 days in line for something like that. I don't know if I would. No, I take that back. I wouldn't. But if I had to, like if that was the only way I was going to be able to see it, I'd be like, all right, well, screw it. The next 5 days, I'm going to be right here. I'm just going to wait in line to make sure I can get in and see this movie type of thing.
So when do they start? That's what I don't understand. Is like when they start these lines, like, can you show up like right now? I'm in line for the start. No, we haven't started yet. No, I'm here now. Okay, then the line starts with you right there.
I feel like that's the way it is because I feel like sometimes, if people are if they're going to show up for a line or something like that, they're always like, you always want to beat the crowd. I've stood in line for things before. You've probably stood in line for things before. Yeah. I mean, that was going to be my third one. My third one would not be a concert. It would not be a movie. I have stood in line for hours for food before.
You've told me this crazy story.
Had an amazing barbecue restaurant in downtown Austin, and I would wait for if I had to, I would wait for 5 days to. I
was about to say
again.
Name the place, but don't name it because then if people listen and they get the name, then there's that much more of a line you got to wait in.
It's going to happen anyway.
That's a good point.
If anybody visits Texas and you ever go to Austin, there's a place called Franklin's Barbecue, and every single day they have a line outside of their door. They open up from 11 to whenever they sell out of food. And every day they always sell out of food. 100% of the time. 100% of the time they sell out of food.
See, I can't imagine that any food is so good that people would wait 4 hours. Like homeless people don't even wait 4 hours.
Texans.
That's why they're on the corner
begging. We
begging.
talked about Texans
like, hey,
before
man.
and how crazy Texans are.
That's
we make
true.
waffle irons that make
Texas
a waffle
awesome.
in our shape, in the shape of our state. And Texans love their barbecue. You cannot come between Texas and their barbecue. And there are some places that are just that amazing that it is worth the wait. And I feel like as I've gotten older, I've acquired more of I don't know what the best way to describe it. I just have a bigger palate for different types of food. So I've tried so many different things, and I know there are some things that I'm just like, this is amazing, and I want to eat this every day for the rest of my life. Franklin's Barbecue, you are in that group. So if anybody who works at Franklin's or anybody who knows Franklin's is listening to this, you're in that group, Franklin. Thank you so much for making the amazing food. that you do make, and I would wait 5 days to get those delicious that delicious brisket in my body. So,
is it the chicken, turkey, beef?
No, beef briskets all the way. This is Texas. Come on, Brendan.
That's
beef,
true. That's a good point. I'm a big fan
all
of the sausage links and the
sausage
turkey.
links are good, and their ribs are good too. Their pork ribs and beef ribs are really delicious. But anyway, we're gonna sit here and talk about food. Everyone's gonna end this podcast with their mouths watering here.
Yeah, we started
Brendan,
with food too because it was Thanksgiving.
We did start with food, although we didn't mention anything about Thanksgiving. Just
I'm
because
drinking
again,
gravy right now.
We're trying. Again, we're trying not to stay too specific to time. But with that being said, now that we've completely blown that rule out of the water, Brendan, is there any final words, or I should say B? I'm sorry, it's just I flip between the two. B, is there any final words that you want to say for today's episode?
Either one is fine. I'm fine with that. Daniel, it's good talking to you. If we're on the hashtag machine, I don't know what it is.
You're. Okay.
You could reach us on the hashtag machine at hashtag.
So,
see, I can't even say
so
ad
the hashtag,
because ad is another
the hashtag
thing, isn't
machine. The hashtag machine is Brendan's way of saying Instagram, Twitter, everything that is not Facebook, I believe. So you can find us if you guys shoot us a question at the named show, or I'm sorry, at no named show on Twitter. So we're on Twitter at no named show. It's spelled NONAMEDSHOW. You can find us on there. If you have a question or want something to be asked in an episode, you can reach us there. We'd be happy to see if we can accommodate some questions asked to the show just in general. Well, thank you guys again for tuning in. Again, this is the show with no named. My name is Daniel. His name is B, and we hope you guys will tune in again in the future.